At a mid-table Premier League club fighting relegation, a prodigious 19-year-old academy graduate, hungry, technically gifted, and tipped for stardom, starts shining in the first team. But the established senior players, led by a veteran captain whose own form is fading, see him as a direct threat to their status, wages, and dressing room hierarchy. What begins as banter and light hazing escalates into calculated psychological warfare and subtle sabotage on the pitch, all while the club's hierarchy turns a blind eye to protect team spirit. The young player's confidence crumbles from within, until one leaked CCTV moment exposes how the very men supposed to guide him are the ones extinguishing his fire. Hook draft, 22:47, 3 minutes before kickoff against a top 6 side. The tunnel at our stadium is that narrow concrete throat where the roar from the stands already feels like it's trying to swallow you whole. Boots scuff the floor, someone coughs, fluorescent lights flicker once like they're about to give up. The kid, our kid, stands there with his head down, laces half-tied, when the captain walks past, shoulder-barges him hard enough that he stumbles into the wall. No one says a word. Then the captain mutters something low, just loud enough for the nearest few to hear. The kid's face changes. He doesn't look scared. He looks like someone who just realized the game he's about to play isn't the one on the pitch. And 30 seconds later, when the referee calls us out, he's still standing there, frozen, as if the tunnel has already decided his fate. Mid-twist plan. The seniors aren't just bullying for fun. They're actively undermining him during matches. Missed passes by accident, ignoring his runs, spreading dressing room whispers that he's not one of us, and leaking stories to the local press about his attitude. The real twist comes when it's revealed the captain has been feeding the manager selective information to ensure the kid gets dropped or loaned out, protecting his own starting spot and a big new contract clause. The kid discovers evidence of this betrayal right before a crucial game. End closure plan. The young player confronts the situation in private, leading to a dressing room explosion that fractures the squad. He's eventually sidelined, loaned to a lower league where the pressure eases, but the scars remain. The club survives relegation thanks to the veterans' experience, but the next big thing is quietly extinguished, leaving a lingering sense of what might have been. No heroes, no villains, just the machine of professional football chewing up potential. Outline 6 to 8 parts. Part 1. The tunnel incident and first signs of tension in the dressing room after the match. Part 2. The kid's rapid rise, early banter from seniors that starts feeling off. Part 3. Escalation, subtle on-pitch sabotage and off-field isolation. Part 4. Psychological toll builds. The kid starts doubting himself. Performance dips. Part 5. Leaked messages and rumors in the media. Internal meeting where manager sides with seniors. Part 6. The big twist. Discovery of captain's deliberate manipulation. Part 7. Climactic confrontation and its immediate fallout. Part 8. Aftermath. The kid's lone move, the club's survival, and the quiet realization that some flames get put out by the very hands meant to protect them. The tunnel smelled of deep heat rub, wet grass, and that faint metallic tang of fear sweat you only notice when everything else goes quiet. 22:47. 3 minutes until we were due out against Newcastle, a night where the floodlights cut sharp shadows across the concrete walls, and every echo felt personal. I was standing just behind him. Let's call the kid Jamie Hargrove, 19 years old, left foot like silk. The sort of boy the academy coaches had been whispering about since he was 16. Academy graduate, local lad, the one who still said thank you when the kit man handed him his boots. That night he was starting for only the 6th time in the Premier League, and you could see the nerves in the way he kept retying the same lace, fingers moving too fast. Then our captain, Marcus Hale, 32, club legend. The kind of player who'd been here since the championship days, walked past. Shoulder first. Not a nudge. A proper barge. Jamie's back hit the wall with a dull thud that cut through the low chatter. His head snapped up. Marcus didn't even look at him, just kept walking, voice low enough that only the 4 or 5 of us closest caught it. Stay out the way tonight, golden boy. Some of us still need to eat." The words landed like a stud to the ankle. Jamie's face didn't flush with anger. It went blank, the way it does when something inside you realizes the fight isn't fair. He finished tying the lace anyway, but his hands were slower now, deliberate, like he was trying to prove he still had control over something. Nobody spoke. That's the rule in tunnels. You don't call out the captain 3 minutes before kickoff. Not even when the fluorescent strip above us flickered once, twice, then steadied with a faint buzz that sounded too much like a warning. The referee's assistant gave the signal. We started moving forward, boots clacking in that familiar rhythm. Jamie was supposed to be right behind Marcus, the new kid shadowing the old guard. Instead, he hung back half a step. I saw his eyes flick to the tunnel exit where the roar was already building, 30,000 voices waiting to judge every touch. For a second, I thought he might actually stop, plant his feet, and refuse to go out. But he didn't. He just followed, shoulders a little tighter than they'd been in the warm-up. We won 2-1 that night. Marcus scored the winner from a set piece. Jamie touched the ball 11 times. Completed 1 pass. Spent most of the second half chasing shadows while the senior lads accidentally stepped on his toes in the huddle or shouted instructions that somehow never included him. In the dressing room afterwards, the air was thick with liniment and relief, music on low. Someone popped a can of the sponsor's energy drink. Marcus sat in his usual corner, boots off, socks rolled down, ice pack on the knee that had been giving him grief for 2 seasons. He was laughing with the midfielders, recounting the goal like it was 2018 again. Jamie sat on the bench opposite, still in his kit, mud streaked up his calves. He hadn't spoken since the final whistle, just stared at the floor where a single stud mark from someone else's boot had left a little scar in the rubber matting. I walked over, handed him a bottle of water. "Rough one, mate." He looked up, eyes red-rimmed, not from crying, from the floodlights and the frustration of running into brick walls dressed as teammates. "They don't want me here," he said quietly. Not a question, a statement. I didn't answer. Couldn't, because I'd seen it before. Different clubs, different names, same story. The young one comes through with talent that makes the old guard feel the clock ticking, and instead of passing the torch, they decide to snuff it out before it gets too bright. Marcus called across the room then, voice loud enough for everyone. "Oi, Hargrove, nice movement out there. Shame about the final ball, though, eh? Keep working hard." The lads laughed, the sort of laugh that has edges. Jamie just nodded once, stood up, and walked to the showers without another word. The door swung shut behind him with a soft click that felt louder than it should have. Outside, the stadium was emptying. Inside, the real game was only just beginning. The next morning, the training ground felt different. Not on the surface. Same manicured pitches glistening under a gray Midland sky, same coffee machine humming in the canteen, same kit man wheeling the laundry trolley past with its familiar squeak. But the air had shifted, like the temperature had dropped 2 degrees and nobody wanted to admit it. Jamie arrived early, as usual, 8:12 a.m., hood up, AirPods in, backpack slung over one shoulder. He'd always been the first in, last out. The kid who treated every session like it was his Champions League final. Today he kept his head down as he walked through the double doors, trainers squeaking on the polished floor. In the gym, the senior lads were already there, Marcus on the bench press, barking numbers while 2 of the older midfielders spotted him. They went quiet when Jamie walked past. Not the respectful quiet, the calculated one. "Morning, superstar," Marcus called, voice dripping with that fake warmth captains learn after a decade in the game. "Heard you were in the ice bath till midnight, trying to freeze out the mistakes from last night?" A couple of the lads chuckled. Jamie forced a half smile, the kind that doesn't reach the eyes, and headed for the bikes. He set the resistance higher than normal, headphones blasting something aggressive, and started pedaling like he could outrun whatever was coming. I was in the corner doing mobility work when one of the younger pros, let's call him Ryan, 24, still trying to nail down a starting spot himself, leaned over. "They're proper on his case, aren't they? Seen it before. Remember what they did to that lad from the under-23s 2 seasons back? Gone by January." I didn't answer. Just watched Jamie's reflection in the mirror. Sweat already beading on his forehead after 10 minutes. Jaw tight. Every pedal stroke looked like punishment. By the time we moved outside for the session, the banter had found its rhythm. Warm-up laps. Marcus jogged alongside Jamie, close enough that their shoulders almost brushed. "Keep it tight today, yeah? Don't go trying any of them fancy flicks. Manager's watching. We need results, not YouTube clips." Jamie nodded, eyes fixed on the grass. But I saw the way his fingers flexed inside his gloves, like he was squeezing something invisible. Then the small-sided games. 11v11 on the far pitch. Jamie started on the left for the first team, a rare chance to prove himself against the regulars. First ball that came his way, a simple layoff from the holding midfielder, he took it first time, spun past one, and threaded a pass that split the defense. Clean, sharp. The sort of touch that makes scouts lean forward in the stands. But the pass never reached its target, because the right back, one of Marcus's closest mates, 31 and on big wages, slipped at the exact moment the ball arrived. Foot planted right where the pass was going. Ball ricocheted into touch. Simple. Accidental. Except it happened twice more in the next 15 minutes. Different angles. Same result. Jamie's runs ignored. His calls unanswered. Every time he dropped deep to link play, someone shouted over him, "Leave it! I've got it!" By the end of the session, his shirt was soaked, not just from effort, but from the weight of it all. The manager pulled him aside at the end, hand on his shoulder, voice low. "Good energy today, Jamie, but you're forcing it a bit, son. Let the game come to you. Trust the senior lads." Jamie just nodded again, said, "Yes, Gaffer." But his eyes told a different story. The same blank look from the tunnel the night before. Something inside him was already starting to dim. That afternoon in the canteen, the whispers started properly. Not loud, never loud. Just the kind of comments dropped between bites of chicken and rice. "Kid's got ability, but he doesn't listen. Thinks he's already made it. Needs to earn his stripes, not expect them handed over." Marcus sat at the head table, laughing with the coaching staff, but I caught him glancing over every few minutes, checking, measuring, like a foreman watching a new machine that might break the old ones. Jamie ate alone at the end of the long table, earphones in, phone face down. He barely touched his food, just pushed it around the plate while the fluorescent lights overhead hummed their steady, indifferent tune. I slid into the seat opposite him halfway through. "You all right?" He looked up. For a second, the mask slipped. They're not even hiding it anymore. Every pass I make, someone's there to block it. Every run, I'm shouting into the wind. What am I supposed to do? Keep my head down and take it? I wanted to tell him the truth, that this was how it worked sometimes, that the dressing room has its own rules, older and meaner than any referees, that talent alone isn't enough when the men who've bled for the badge decide you're a threat to their mortgage, their status, their last big contract. Instead, I said, keep working. Show them on the pitch. They can't ignore results forever. He gave a short, bitter laugh. Results? Last night, I had 11 touches. 11! I've had more in five-a-side at the academy. He stood up then, plate still half full, and walked out. The door closed behind him with that same soft click. Outside, the wind had picked up, rattling the trees along the training ground driveway. Marcus and a couple of the others were already in the car park, leaning against expensive motors, sharing a joke. As Jamie passed, Marcus raised his voice just enough. "Oi, golden boy! Don't forget the recovery session tomorrow. Wouldn't want you picking up any niggling little injuries, would we?" The laugh that followed chased Jamie all the way to his car. He didn't look back. But I did. And I saw the way his shoulders had started to hunch. The way the fire that used to burn so bright in his eyes was flickering now, fighting against a wind he hadn't seen coming. The kind of wind that comes from the very men who are supposed to shelter it. The following week, the cracks started showing in public. Tuesday night, away at Bournemouth. A grim Tuesday in early March, rain sheeting down, the kind that turns the pitch into a shallow lake and every pass into a lottery. We were 1-0 up at halftime, thanks to a Marcus header from a corner. Jamie had started again. Left wing, the manager still trying to give the kid minutes despite the growing tension. In the tunnel at the break, the atmosphere was thick. Wet socks slapping on concrete, steam rising off shoulders, the low hum of the away end still booing every touch. Jamie sat in the corner of the dressing room, towel over his head, breathing hard. He'd had 17 touches in the first half, completed 9. Not terrible in those conditions, but not the spark we needed either. Marcus walked straight past him, water bottle in hand, and let it drop, deliberately, so it bounced off Jamie's knee and rolled away. "Oops," Marcus said, flat, no smile. "Watch your feet, lad. Space is tight in here." A couple of the lads smirked. The physio looked the other way, suddenly very interested in his kit bag. Jamie picked the bottle up without a word, placed it neatly on the bench, and kept his head down. Second half was where it got ugly. We pushed for a second goal. Jamie made a run down the left, calling loud, arm up. The ball came, a decent one from the right back. He took it on the half turn, beat his man with a drop of the shoulder, and looked up. 2 options, cut inside or square it across the box where Marcus was waiting, unmarked. Classic. The kid shaped a cross. Then the captain shouted, not the usual, "Leave it!" but something sharper, angrier. "Mine!" Jamie hesitated half a second. That was all it took. Marcus charged in anyway, clattered into him from behind. Studs raked the back of Jamie's calf. The ball squirted loose. Bournemouth broke. We conceded on the counter. 1-1. Back in our half, Marcus got right in Jamie's face as we reset. Rain streaming down both their faces, chests heaving. "What the fuck was that? When I say mine, it's fucking mine. You're not the star here, sunshine. Not yet." Jamie stared back, water dripping from his lashes. For the first time, I saw real anger flicker behind the fear. But he swallowed it, nodded once, turned and jogged back into position. He barely touched the ball again. Every time it came near him, a senior body appeared. Shoulder charge, little clip, a shout that pulled the attention elsewhere. By full time, he'd managed 4 more touches. We drew 1-1. Points dropped we couldn't afford. In the dressing room after, the silence was poisonous. Jamie sat with his head in his hands, mud and grass plastered to his socks. The cut on his calf was bleeding through the sock now. Nothing serious, just enough to sting every time he moved. Marcus was holding court again, voice loud, replaying the equalizer like it was someone else's fault. Should have been 2-0. Silly mistakes cost us. His eyes flicked to Jamie as he said it. Later, in the coach on the way home, the senior lads took the back seats. Cards out, music low. Jamie sat near the front, alone, staring out at the motorway lights streaking past. I slid into the seat across the aisle. "You saw that, right?" he said quietly, not looking at me. He took me out. On purpose. I kept my voice low. It looked clumsy. It wasn't clumsy. His breath fogged the window. He's done it 3 times this week in training. Always when no one important is watching. Little things. A stamp here, a block there. Then in the huddle they all laugh about how I need to learn the game. He pulled his phone out, hesitated, then showed me the screen. A private group chat, not the official one, just the senior players. Messages from the last few days. Marcus. "Kid's trying too hard. Makes us look slow." Another defender. "Tell the gaffer he's not ready. Attitude problem." A laughing emoji. Then a screenshot of a local journalist's tweet asking why the Academy wonderkid wasn't influencing games more. Jamie locked the phone again. "I didn't even know I was in the chat until someone added me by mistake last night. They removed me this morning. But I saw enough." The coach rumbled on through the dark. Outside, rain kept falling. Inside, the kids' shoulders were starting to cave inward, the way they do when the weight gets too much and there's no one to share it with. Thursday morning, recovery session. Light pitches, yoga mats, the works. Jamie turned up with the calf heavily strapped, limping slightly. The manager noticed straight away. "Problem?" Jamie shook his head. "Just a knock from Tuesday. Fine." But the physio pulled him aside anyway. While they were talking, Marcus wandered over to the coaching staff. Casual as you like, coffee in hand. "Kid's been moaning about his calf all week. Reckon he's not match sharp." Maybe give him a rest this weekend, Gaffer. We need legs that are properly up for it against Palace. I was close enough to hear. The manager nodded slowly, thoughtful, the kind of nod that decides futures. Jamie came back from the treatment room 10 minutes later, face pale. He caught the tail end of the conversation and stopped dead. The manager clapped his hands. Right, lads. Team for Saturday. Marcus, you're captain as usual. Jamie, we'll ease you back in. Squad roll for now. Plenty of football left this season. Jamie didn't argue, just stood there while the senior lads exchanged glances, satisfied ones. That night, back at the academy digs where he still lived because he hadn't earned the big house yet, I got a text from him at 23:14. Can't sleep. Every time I close my eyes, I see them laughing. Am I going mad? I didn't reply straight away. What do you say to a kid who's realizing the men he grew up idolizing on the TV are the ones holding the extinguisher? Instead, I stared at my own phone screen until it went dark. The fire was dimming faster now, and the people whose job it was to keep it burning were the ones quietly blowing on the coals in the opposite direction. The weekend against Crystal Palace was the first time the public started to notice. Saturday, 3 p.m. kickoff, our stadium half full because the rain had returned and the relegation fight was starting to bite. Jamie was on the bench, tracksuit zipped to the chin, hood up even though we were indoors. He sat at the far end, away from the senior lads who were laughing and slapping backs like it was any other match day. Marcus started, scored in the 28th minute with a trademark near-post header. The crowd roared his name like they always did. Hail! Hail! The chant rolled around the stands, while Jamie stared at his boots. At halftime, we were 1-0 up. In the dressing room, the mood was buoyant. Marcus was in full captain mode, chest out, voice booming, telling everyone to keep the intensity. Jamie sat in silence, sipping an energy drink, eyes on the floor. When the manager named the subs for the second half, Jamie's name wasn't called, not even for a 10-minute run-out. The final whistle went 2-1 to us, another Marcus assist for the winner. In the tunnel, afterwards, the kid walked out alone, head down, while the rest of us were mobbed by cameras and kids asking for shirts. I saw one young supporter hold out a pen and a program towards Jamie. The boy hesitated, then signed it quickly, almost apologetically, before disappearing into the players' lounge. Monday's training was where the isolation became complete. The senior group had started a new ritual. Every time Jamie made a good pass or a clever run in the small-sided games, someone would shout, "Too flashy," or "Keep it simple, Academy boy." The laughter that followed wasn't loud. It was the quiet, knowing kind that spreads like smoke. Worse were the off-pitch moments. In the canteen, the table where the established players sat had suddenly become full whenever Jamie approached. He'd stand there with his tray for a second, then move to the end of the room near the apprentices. Alone. In the video analysis room that afternoon, the lights were dimmed, the big screen flickering with clips from Saturday. The analyst paused on the goal, Marcus's movement. Perfect. Then someone, one of the older center halves, muttered just loud enough. Shame the kid wasn't on to finish the chances we created. Might have had 3. The room chuckled. Jamie, sitting 3 rows back, said nothing. But I saw his pen stop moving on the notepad where he'd been scribbling notes like he always did. The page stayed blank for the rest of the session. By Wednesday, the psychological toll was visible in his body. He was still coming in early, still doing extras after everyone else had left. But the spark had gone. His movements were heavier. The left foot that used to dance across the turf now looked cautious, almost afraid to commit. In a shooting drill, he skied 3 in a row, balls sailing high over the bar while the goalkeepers smirked behind their gloves. Marcus watched from the side, arms folded, nodding slowly like a teacher marking a disappointing pupil. That evening, I found Jamie in the gym, long after dark. The lights were off, except for the emergency strips that cast long shadows across the weights. He was on the treadmill, running at a pace that looked more like escape than fitness. Earphones in, sweat pouring, eyes fixed on nothing. I waited until he slowed to a walk. "You're killing yourself here, mate." He didn't look at me. Just kept staring at the digital display, counting down the minutes. If I stop, they win. If I keep going, maybe the manager sees I'm still worth it. His voice cracked on the last word. Not loud, just enough. I leaned on the console. They're not going to let you shine. Not while Marcus still needs the spotlight. His contract's up in 18 months. Big money riding on performances. You're 19. You're the future. They're the present. And the present doesn't like being reminded it's temporary. Jamie hit the stop button. The treadmill whined down. He stepped off, chest heaving, and finally met my eyes. I heard them in the showers yesterday. Marcus telling the lads I've got an attitude, that I think I'm better than everyone because I came through the academy, that I need to be brought down a peg. They're feeding it to the manager every day. Little comments. Kid's not ready. He's disrupting the dressing room. He wiped his face with the bottom of his shirt. The fluorescent emergency light flickered once above us, just like in the tunnel that night. And the worst part? He said, voice barely above a whisper. I'm starting to believe them. Every time I get the ball now, I second guess. Should I pass? Should I shoot? Is this too selfish? Too flashy? I used to play with no fear. Now I'm terrified of making a mistake because I know they'll be waiting to pounce. He sat down on the bench, elbows on knees, head in hands. I came here to play football, not to fight my own teammates. Outside, the training ground floodlights clicked off one by one, plunging the car park into darkness. Only the security light above the gym door stayed on, casting a cold, white pool around us. I wanted to tell him it would pass, that he just needed to keep his head down, keep working, wait for his moment. But the words stuck, because I'd seen this story before. Different kid, different club, same ending. The flame wasn't just flickering anymore. It was starting to smoke. The Friday before the Palace rematch. No, the home fixture against them this time. The first real leak slipped out. It was 10:47 a.m. I was in the canteen grabbing a coffee when one of the younger analysts walked past, phone in hand, muttering under his breath. You seeing this? He tilted the screen just enough. A local journalist's Twitter thread. Not a big outlet, one of those hyper-local ones that feeds the forums and WhatsApp groups. The headline was careful. Academy star Jamie Hargrove facing dressing room tension at club. Below it, anonymous sources, a senior player, and someone close to the squad, painting the picture in soft brushstrokes. The kid's got talent, but his attitude is rubbing the experienced lads the wrong way. He's been isolated in training, not buying into the team culture. Questions over whether he's ready for the physical and mental demands of the Premier League scrap. The replies were already piling up. Some defending Jamie, calling it classic senior player protectionism. Others piling on. Send him back to the under-23s. Typical modern footballer, all ego, no graft. Jamie wasn't in yet. He usually arrived at 8:30 sharp. Today, his parking spot stayed empty until 11:12. When he finally walked through the doors, hoodie pulled low, the whole place felt like it had been waiting for him. Heads turned, conversations dipped. In the dressing room for the pre-match prep, the atmosphere was thick enough to chew. The kit was laid out neatly, boots polished, but the usual pre-game music was off. Just the low hum of the aircon and the occasional locker slam. Marcus sat in his corner, phone out, scrolling slowly. He looked up as Jamie entered, gave a small nod that wasn't friendly. Heard you're trending, golden boy. Careful what you say to the press, yeah? Jamie froze mid-step. I haven't spoken to anyone. Didn't say you did. Marcus's voice stayed calm, almost bored. But rumors have a way of starting somewhere. The manager called a quick meeting then. 15 minutes, tactical shapes on the board, set-piece reminders. Halfway through he paused, looked straight at Jamie. Listen, son, we've had some noise this week. External stuff. Doesn't help anyone. Keep your head down, do your job, let the senior lads lead. Team first. Jamie nodded. Said nothing. But when the meeting broke, he walked straight to the toilets instead of the pitch. I followed a minute later, pretending I needed the sink. He was standing at the far basin, hands gripping the porcelain, staring at his own reflection under the harsh strip light that flickered every few seconds. His eyes were bloodshot. Not from crying, from not sleeping. They're doing it on purpose, he said without turning round. voice flat. Marcus added that journalist on Insta last week. I saw the follow notification before he blocked it. Now this. They're feeding it, making me the problem, so when I get dropped, it looks like my fault. I didn't deny it. Couldn't. He turned then. I've got messages from mates at other clubs. Same story. One lad told me his captain used to lose his boots before games. Another said they'd hide his shin pads. Little things, but it adds up. Wears you down until you start believing you're the issue. His phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out, glanced at the screen, and his face changed. A screenshot from the senior player's private group, the one he'd been kicked out of. Someone had screenshotted a new message and sent it to him anonymously. Marcus. Kid's leaking shit to the press now. Manager needs to know he's not one of us. Timestamp, 9:33 that morning. Jamie showed me. His hand was steady, but the knuckles were white. I didn't leak anything, he whispered, but they're making sure everyone thinks I did. The afternoon session was light. Walkthroughs, then recovery. Jamie went through the motions, but every pass he played was tentative. Every time he called for the ball, the response was slower. Deliberate silence. In the showers afterwards, the senior lads kept the conversation going loud enough for him to hear. Press are loving this drama. Just what we need mid-relegation scrap. Some players need to learn when to shut up and learn. Jamie stood under the spray with his back to them, water pounding his shoulders. He didn't react. Just let it wash over him like the rest of the noise. That night, the manager called him into the office. 1922. I was walking past the corridor when the door was still ajar. Voices carried. Jamie, we're protecting you here. Dropping you to the bench for tomorrow. Give you time to reset. The lads are concerned about the distraction. Focus on your game. Block out the external. Jamie's reply was quiet. It's not external, Gaffer. It's inside. A long pause. Team spirit is non-negotiable, son. We've got a job to do. Seniors have been through wars. Trust them. The door clicked shut. I waited in the car park. Jamie came out 20 minutes later, bag over his shoulder, walking like the weight had doubled. He stopped by my car. They're going to bury me, he said. Not dramatic, just factual. And the manager's letting them because it's easier than rocking the boat. One bad run of results and they'll say I was the problem all along. The floodlights above us buzzed, casting long shadows across the tarmac. His breath fogged in the cold night air. I used to dream about this, pulling on the shirt every week. Now I wake up scared to come in. He got in his car without another word. Taillights faded down the driveway. Inside the building, the senior players were still in the lounge, lights on, laughter spilling out. Marcus's voice carried furthest, loud, confident, in control. The machine was working exactly as designed, and the kid, who was supposed to be the future, was being quietly, efficiently erased from the present. The Saturday night after the Palace game changed everything. We won 1-0. Marcus again, a scrappy deflected shot in the 67th minute that the crowd celebrated like it was the title decider. Jamie didn't get off the bench, not even when we were hanging on in the last 10. He sat there in the technical area shadows, tracksuit hood still up, arms folded so tight his knuckles pressed white against the fabric. The stadium lights caught the side of his face every time the fourth official walked past. Blank, hollow, like someone had turned the volume down on the boy who used to light up every session. In the dressing room, the music was back on, bass thumping off the lockers. Champagne for the sponsors, even though it was only 3 points in a scrap. Marcus was in the middle of it, shirt off, sweat still rolling down the tattoos on his chest, telling the story of the goal for the 3rd time. The lads roared every time he exaggerated the deflection. Jamie slipped in quietly, sat on the edge of his bench, and started unlacing his unused boots. No one spoke to him. No one had to. The silence around him was louder than the celebration. I was pulling my own kit off when my phone buzzed in my bag. A notification from one of the club's internal CCTV feeds. The security lad sometimes shared funny clips in the staff group. Nothing serious. This one wasn't funny. It was time-stamped 14:22 that afternoon, just before the warm-up. The corridor outside the home dressing room. Marcus walking past the physio room where Jamie was getting his calf strapped again. The captain stopped, checked left and right, then leaned in close. The audio was tinny, but clear enough. "You keep running to the gaffer with your little sob stories, and I'll make sure every scout in the country knows you're a dressing room cancer. You're not taking my fucking shirt. Not now, not ever." Jamie's head was down in the footage, nodding slowly, saying nothing. Marcus straightened up, patted the kid's shoulder once, hard, and walked off whistling. The clip ended. The group chat exploded with laughing emojis from a couple of the coaching staff who clearly hadn't watched it properly yet. Someone typed, "banter." I stared at the screen until it went dark. Then I looked across at Jamie. He was staring straight at me, like he already knew. His eyes weren't angry anymore. They were exhausted. The kind of tired that comes when you realize the fight was rigged before you even stepped in the ring. Later, when most of the lads had drifted to the players' lounge for the sponsor drinks, Jamie stayed behind. I waited until the room emptied, then pulled up the clip on my phone and slid it across the bench to him. He watched it once. Twice. On the third time his thumb hovered over the screen, paused it on Marcus's face mid-sentence. "I knew it," he said quietly, "but seeing it, hearing it, he's not just protecting his spot. He's scared. His agent's been negotiating a new deal with a performance-related clause. Big money if he starts 30 games this season. I'm the only one pushing him for that left-sided spot, so he's making sure I don't." He handed the phone back. His fingers were steady now, but the fire that used to burn behind his eyes had gone somewhere cold and quiet. "There's more," he added. "I checked the training logs this morning. Every time I've been in the first team group for small-sided, the coach has mysteriously changed the teams last minute after Marcus has a quiet word. Every single time. And the local paper, that journalist he follows, the one who wrote the attitude piece, got an exclusive interview with Marcus yesterday. Experienced heads guiding the young ones through tough times. Nice photo of them laughing in the canteen. Jamie stood up, pulled his hoodie on, and zipped it right to the chin, even though the room was still warm from the showers. "I thought the seniors were supposed to look after us, teach us the dark arts. Instead, they're using them to bury anyone who might take their place. And the club lets it happen because short-term results matter more than long-term talent. One relegation scrap is scarier than losing the next big thing." He walked to the door, stopped with his hand on the handle. "I've got a meeting with the manager Monday morning. I'm showing him this, the messages, the clip, everything. If he sides with them again, I'm done asking nicely." The door clicked shut behind him. I sat there alone under the flickering fluorescent lights, the distant bass from the lounge still thumping through the walls. On my phone, the CCTV clip was still open, paused on Marcus's face. That familiar captain's smile, the one the fans loved, the one that hid the calculation underneath. The twist wasn't that the seniors were bullying the kid. The twist was how deliberately, how surgically they'd been doing it. Not out of blind ego, not just to keep the hierarchy, but because every pass Jamie didn't make, every minute he didn't play, was another week Marcus stayed indispensable. Another clause triggered. Another year of security bought at the price of someone else's future. And the club? The manager? They weren't blind. They were complicit. Because in the end, the machine doesn't care who gets extinguished, as long as the lights stay on for Saturday. Monday morning came gray and heavy. Jamie walked into the manager's office at 9:15 sharp, USB stick in his pocket with every screenshot, every clip, every time-stamped message he'd quietly collected over the last 3 weeks. He'd barely slept. The bags under his eyes were dark enough that the receptionist asked if he was ill. The meeting lasted 23 minutes. When he came out, his face was the same color as the corridor walls. The manager had watched the CCTV, read the messages, listened to every word. Then he'd leaned back in his chair, steepled his fingers, and said, "Jamie, son, this is exactly the sort of thing that disrupts team spirit. Marcus has been here 10 years. He's earned the right to lead. If you can't handle a bit of competitive edge in the dressing room, maybe the Premier League isn't for you yet. We'll look at a loan in the championship. Let you develop away from the spotlight. Come back stronger. No investigation, no conversation with Marcus, just a quiet suggestion that the problem was the kid who'd brought the evidence. Jamie didn't shout, didn't cry. He just placed the USB stick on the desk, turned, and walked out. In the car park, Marcus was leaning against his Range Rover, arms folded, watching. When Jamie passed, the captain didn't say a word, just gave the smallest nod, the nod of a man who'd won. The flame hadn't just been dimmed. It had been calculated, measured, and put out with surgical precision by the very hands the club paid to protect it. The explosion came on Tuesday afternoon at 15:47. The first team dressing room was supposed to be empty. Light training in the morning, then most of the lads had gone for recovery or media duties. Only the kit man was still around, wheeling trolleys in the corridor, wheels squeaking like they always did. Jamie had asked to speak to Marcus privately. No cameras this time, no phones recording, just the two of them. I was in the gym next door when I heard the first raised voice. Not shouting yet, just that low, tight tone that comes right before everything snaps. "You've been feeding the manager lies for weeks." Marcus's laugh was short and dry. "Lies? Mate, I've been telling the truth." "You're not ready. You walk around like the academy owes you the shirt. Newsflash, this is the Premier League. You earn it." Boots scraped on the tiled floor. A locker door slammed once, hard enough that the echo rolled down the corridor. "I've got the messages, the CCTV. You threatened me. Told me you'd ruin my name to every scout in the country." A pause. Then Marcus's voice dropped, colder now. "And what are you going to do about it, golden boy? Run crying to the gaffer again? He already told you. Team first. You think one little video changes that? I've bled for this club." "You've done 6 starts and a handful of cameos. Sit down, shut up, and wait your turn. Or don't. There's a championship club ringing tomorrow. Nice, quiet loan. Perfect for lads who can't handle the heat." That was when the real noise started. Something heavy hit the wall. Sounded like a kit bag. Then the crash of a bench being kicked over. Voices overlapping, words tumbling too fast to catch clearly, but the tone was unmistakable. Years of resentment finally breaking surface. "You're scared," Jamie shouted. "Scared that a 19-year-old is better than you on your worst day. So you stamp on my calf, you block my runs, you whisper in every ear that I'm the problem. You're not a captain. You're a coward protecting his paycheck." Marcus's reply was quieter, but every word carried. "Careful, kid. Words like that end careers, especially when the whole dressing room backs me." I pushed the gym door open just in time to see them. Marcus had Jamie by the collar of his training top, knuckles white, faces inches apart. The veteran's jaw was set, eyes narrowed. Jamie's were wide, breathing fast, but he wasn't backing down. The kit man appeared behind me, froze, then wisely turned and walked the other way. "You touch me again," Jamie said, voice shaking but clear, "and I'll make sure every single player in this league knows exactly what you are." Marcus let go with a shove that sent Jamie stumbling back into the lockers. Metal rattled. "Get out of my club," the captain spat, "before I make sure you never play here again." Jamie straightened up, wiped his mouth with the back of his hand, even though there was no blood, and walked straight past me without a glance. His shoulder caught the doorframe hard enough to leave a mark, but he didn't flinch. Behind him, Marcus was already straightening his shirt, breathing steady again, the mask sliding back into place. He caught my eye for half a second. The message was clear. Say nothing. By evening, the story had leaked. Not the full details, but enough. A blurred photo of the overturned bench appeared on a fan's forum. Whispers in the WhatsApp groups. The manager called an emergency squad meeting at 1900. We sat in silence while he paced the room, face tight. "Whatever happened this afternoon stays in this room. We've got a relegation fight. I won't have egos tearing us apart." Jamie, you're training with the under-23s until further notice. Marcus, you're still captain. The rest of you, focus on Saturday. Jamie wasn't even in the meeting. He'd already left the building. That night, my phone lit up at 22:31. A single message from him. They won. I'm done asking. Loan papers are being drawn up tomorrow. Championship. 6 months. They called it development opportunity. I call it exile. I didn't reply. What was there to say? The dressing room the next morning felt split down the middle. Some of the younger lads looked uneasy. The seniors moved like nothing had happened. Marcus laughing louder than usual, clapping backs, reminding everyone who the leader was. The fluorescent lights overhead seemed harsher, the air thicker with the scent of fresh regret. Jamie's locker was already half empty. Boots gone, nameplate still there, but the space behind it hollow. He came in one last time that afternoon to clear the rest. Hood up, bag slung low, moving like a ghost through the place that was supposed to be his home. The senior lads watched from the far side but said nothing. No final jab, no victory lap. Just the quiet satisfaction of a job completed. At the door he stopped, turned once, and looked straight at Marcus. The captain met his gaze. For a second something passed between them. Not apology, not respect. Just the cold understanding of two men who now knew exactly where they stood. Jamie nodded once. Small. Final. Then he walked out. The door closed with the softest click, and in that moment, the dressing room felt smaller, the lights dimmer. The roar that would come on Saturday already sounded further away. Because the kid who was meant to be the future hadn't just been pushed aside. He'd been broken in plain sight. And every single one of us had watched it happen. The loan was confirmed on Thursday morning at 9:17. A championship club 2 hours up the M6, fighting for playoffs, desperate for a left winger who could create. The official statement was clean, professional, the usual corporate language. Jamie Hargrove joins on a season-long loan to gain valuable first-team experience. The club account posted a generic graphic with his face and the new badge. Fans replied with fire emojis and "good luck, lad." They had no idea. Jamie didn't do a press conference, didn't pose with the new scarf. He simply packed 2 suitcases, loaded them into the back of his black Golf, and drove out of the training ground car park at 11:43 while the senior lads were still in the canteen eating their pre-training meal. Marcus stood at the window, arms folded, watching the car disappear down the long driveway. He didn't smile. He just nodded once, the same nod he'd given in the corridor after the fight. Job done. I drove behind him for the first 20 minutes, not because he asked me to, but because someone needed to. At the services near Stafford, he pulled in. We sat in the quiet corner of the cafe, 2 coffees going cold between us. Rain tapped on the roof like impatient fingers. They offered me the under-23s, he said eventually, staring at the table. I told them no. Said if I'm not wanted, I'd rather be somewhere they actually need me, even if it's 2 divisions down. His voice was flatter than I'd ever heard it. Not broken exactly. More like the volume had been turned so low you had to lean in to catch the words. I keep replaying that tunnel moment. 22:47. The shoulder barge. The whisper. I thought it was just banter that got out of hand. Turns out it was the starting pistol. Everything after, the blocked passes, the rumors, the clip, the meeting, it was all planned, step by step. They didn't hate me. They just needed me gone so Marcus could keep signing the checks and the manager could keep his dressing room quiet. He turned his phone face up. A new message from an unknown number, one of the academy coaches who'd stayed loyal. Heard the seniors had a WhatsApp sweepstake on how many weeks it would take before you were loaned out. Marcus won 180 pounds. Jamie locked the screen again without comment. We sat in silence until the coffees were stone cold. Then he stood up, shook my hand properly for the first time in weeks, grip still firm even if the eyes weren't. Tell the young ones coming through. Watch the ones who smile the loudest. They're usually the ones holding the match. He got back in the car. Tail lights faded into the motorway spray. The next 6 weeks passed in that strange, suspended way football does when something ugly has happened behind the scenes. We stayed up. Just. A late Marcus penalty on the final day secured survival by 2 points. The lap of honor was loud, emotional, scarves in the air, hale, hale, ringing round the stadium like nothing had ever been wrong. The local paper ran a glowing piece. Captain's leadership, key to great escape. Marcus did the interviews, modest, grateful, talking about the dressing room spirit that got us through. Nobody mentioned the empty locker in the far corner. Nobody mentioned the kid who used to arrive at 8:12 with fire in his boots and now sent the odd Instagram story from a rain-soaked training ground 2 divisions lower. Grainy clips of him beating a fullback, smile small and careful, like he was still checking over his shoulder. I saw him once more, mid-season, when our under-23s played a friendly against his new club's development side. He came over after the game, tracksuit still on, hair damp from the shower. The championship club had given him 12 starts already. He was creating chances again, the left foot starting to remember its old language. But something was different. The hesitation before every decision. The way he scanned the touchline even when no one was watching. The quiet way he thanked the kit man twice. We stood by the tunnel. Different tunnel. Same concrete smell. Same fluorescent flicker overhead. "You sleeping better?" I asked. "Some nights," he said. Then, quieter. I still hear his voice sometimes. "Stay out the way, golden boy." Wakes me up at 3 a.m. like it's happening again. The club keeps telling me I'm doing well, that they want to buy me permanently. But I know what they see when they look at me. Damaged goods. The lad who couldn't handle the big dressing room. The one who got moved on because he rocked the boat. He looked down the tunnel towards the pitch, where the floodlights were already cutting through the dusk. Funny thing is, I don't even hate Marcus anymore. I understand him. He's 32, knees shot, one more big contract and he can retire comfortable. I was the threat. So he did what the game taught him to do, protect what's his. The club let him because short-term pain for them is worse than long-term damage to me. That's football, not the beautiful game. The real one. A groundsman started switching off the lights, one bank at a time. The tunnel darkened around us, shadows stretching longer. Jamie zipped his hoodie right to the chin, the same way he used to after bad games. I used to think if you were good enough, the talent would protect you. Turns out the men who've already made it decide whether your talent gets to breathe, and most of the time, they choose not to. He gave me a small, tired smile that didn't reach his eyes. Tell the next kid who comes through, when the captain barges you in the tunnel at 22:47, don't freeze. Run. Because by the time you realize what's happening, the door's already closing behind you. He walked off into the car park, shoulders still a little hunched, boots scuffing the tarmac with a softer rhythm than before. Behind him, the last floodlight clicked off. The stadium fell quiet. And somewhere up the M6, in a different dressing room with different lights and different voices, another young player was probably tying his laces 3 minutes before kickoff, heart full of hope, unaware that the real game had already started long before the referee blew the whistle. Some flames get put out quietly. Others burn lower, farther away, in smaller stadiums, where the roar isn't quite as loud. But every now and then, late at night, you still catch the faint glow of what might have been, if the hands that were meant to shield it hadn't decided, instead, to close around it until the light went out.